This week on This is the Wayseekers, we're finally talking about AHSOKA. The good, the bad, and the ugly. That's right, we're doing another tier list on this podcast because we had so much fun with the last one, and we thought what better way to talk about all 8 episodes of AHSOKA than ranking them on a tier list. This week we're joined by special guest Crystal Kyber, and despite all 3 of our varying opinions on the series, at the end of the day, each episode must end up in one place on the tier list. To do this, that means we must argue and defend our positions and try not to hate each other at the end of this episode. But at the end of the day, it's Star Wars and it's all in good fun, so why don't you join us on this very special episode of This is the Wayseekers. Hello everyone, welcome back to This is the Wayseekers. Okay, look at us doing an actual proper intro at the beginning. This week on the podcast, we're finally talking about AHSOKA. And when I say finally, I mean we're talking about it super soon. We're like the first creators on this platform to be talking about AHSOKA. We're right on time, bright and early.
It just ended. Here we are. We're it was just so amazing. We just watched the finale and we're already talking about it.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have pre-recorded this months ago. When it was fresh in our minds.
So I'm joined with Scotty, my co-host as always, and we're joined by special guest Crystal Kyber, been on the podcast before, second time. How are you doing, Crystal?
I'm doing well. I'm so excited to be here, and I hope everyone is ready to listen to us fight for an hour.
Okay, but to give some background on what we actually think of the show and how we're coming into this, why don't we rank AHSOKA out of 10? So, ranking of AHSOKA, the entire series out of 10. 3, 2, 1, 5 out of 10.
7.
3.
Oh! Okay, so we got 7, 5, and 3. So Scotty, 7 out of 10. You like it the most. What did you enjoy about AHSOKA?
I enjoyed the characters, the way the characters kind of molded over time in the series. All the doubts that we all had, even me who loved it, we all had doubts about Ahsoka in live action, and we got to see her become more of the Ahsoka that we were used to. It was just a fun series overall. Most if not all of the castings, I would say, were great. Amon Esfandi being a highlight. Natasha Liu Bordizzo was really great as Sabine. Like, it was just a really fun series overall, and it gave me that fantasy that I love in Star Wars.
Okay. I can respect that. Crystal, 3 out of 10. What's up with that?
Yeah. I just had so many issues with the writing, the storytelling overall, the choreography, the acting, the stunt work. Like, I just had so many issues with every aspect of the story that it really dropped it down, which is so unfortunate because I really, really love Ahsoka.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, is we're all coming into this from a place of like years of love for the character, and I think that manifests in varying ways into our opinion. As the person that's kind of in the middle, right in the middle, 5 out of 10, I think that Ahsoka, like, on its own is fine. It's like whatever, it exists on its own, fine. But the thing is, it doesn't exist on its own. It kind of jams its way into like 4 other TV shows and kind of ruins those. And I'm a huge fan of the animation, and Ahsoka's obviously from animation. Not a huge fan of it being in live action. I feel like there's so many things that go against Ahsoka because it was in live action that make me go, why wasn't it just in animation? And so for that, I can't give it any higher than a 5 out of 10. Like, yeah, sure, I enjoyed myself. I had a fun time. Anakin Skywalker was on screen. Like, thank you, Dave Filoni, for the 9th time. But let's get into this ranking, because I think it's going to be a little fun. We got all 8 episodes up here. We're going to go through all of them. And the catch is we have to put it in one place, and we have to all 3 agree on it, that it should go in that spot in our collective tier list. So
True. And unlike last week, it's not just me and you, Austin.
Yep.
Crystal's gonna have to give her opinion too. Crystal, where we
Exactly.
all have to disagree. So I won't be able to sway Austin as easily this time around.
Yes, yes. And also, I was a little bit of a pushover last week, I feel like. And so I'm not gonna be doing that. I'm gonna stand my ground and see what Scotty feels about that. No.
I felt
Okay.
like you both were being a little too respectful.
Right. Right. No more of
I
that.
mean, you want disrespect? I'll give you disrespect, bitch. Like, let's go.
Oh, wait.
Okay, well, yeah, this is my podcast, so no being bullied on my podcast. No, I'm just okay. Part 1, Master and Apprentice, directed by Dave Filoni. Started off the whole thing. We got the introduction of Ahsoka. We got the introduction of Harrison Dula, Sabine Wren, Baylan Skoll, Shin Hati. Started off in the beginning with like a very, very impactful beginning of Baylan
Mhm.
Skoll and Shin Hati like taking down an entire rebel cruiser. Like, okay. Period. Like, you had me scared in the first 10 seconds, so
Yeah.
I definitely loved that setup. But I feel like for me, this episode has a lot of the faults of the series are in this episode. I feel like a lot of the dialogue, it's very clunky. There's a lot of boring scenes. Like, why are we spending 5 entire minutes of Ahsoka opening up this puzzle and we have no
In
context for what
silence.
it is? No silence, no characters. Like, the music's cool, the visuals are kind of bland. I didn't really enjoy. I feel like there was a lot of moments like that I didn't really enjoy. But enough of me blabbing. What'd you guys think of episode 1, the introduction to this entire thing?
I do want to mention that you mentioned it was the introduction. Well, not only was it the introduction to the series, but it gave us our introduction to a lot of these characters. Some of these characters for the first time in live action,
Mhm.
and I do agree. We knew who Ahsoka was, but like I didn't feel like I jumped into an Ahsoka story with
Yep.
this intro. I think what it did the best was introduce Balin and Shin, because I
Yep.
think their introduction was amazing. It was almost like a parallel to the Vader hallway scene that everybody talks about. That's what people we were saying when the trailer came out, and it gave
Mhm.
me kind of everything I needed there. Um, but yeah, it wasn't necessarily my favorite introduction either. Plus the fact that we're kind of left on a cliffhanger with Sabine going up against Shin,
Mhm.
and we know
Yeah.
Sabine ain't gonna die in the first episode. So it was like, is it
Right.
really a cliffhanger?
Right. Yeah, I like that lightsaber duel though. Like, seeing the
Oh,
two of them go against each other. I liked it, but I didn't love the way it ended because, like you said, it was like, was that really impactful? And then they released the second episode anyway, so it was like,
oh, yeah, it was a two-parter.
right.
Uh, Crystal, I want to hear what you have to say, but I do want to point out that I don't know about you. While I like the energy of the duel, the choreography was very lackluster for me.
Yeah.
I
Because I
agree. I
know,
felt like
oh, I'm a swordsman, so I was really paying attention to it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm a
okay.
improvise.
swordsman.
Okay. More like a broomsman.
Oh my god. Yeah, I felt like that lightsaber duel could have been more impactful as like a conversation because they just were so slow. And I feel like it knocked Shin down a little bit too because Shin supposedly
Mhm.
had been training with, a Jedi master and she can't go up against Sabine, who I know is also a warrior, but she's not trained in like the lightsaber like Shin is. So I think if it was more of like a conversation rather than like a
Yeah,
Right.
it might have been more like maybe more interesting or maybe more like dynamic or show more for their characters, I guess.
I think
Definitely.
that's a, I think that's a great point too. Because the one thing this episode also did was show us that a lot of time had passed since Ahsoka and Sabine were together. And it established that. So we knew Sabine had not been training. She grew out her hair, which was a clear indication of time passing. And we even
Mhm.
see her have to dig the lightsaber out of like just like a tub of stuff. So
Right.
she wasn't brushed up on those skills, but you're right. Shin's been training, and she shows in her own right she's pretty much a warrior as well. So
Right.
Right.
it was a little odd, but she did get the stab. So
Right. Right.
Right. Well, can we talk about the fact that it was so out of left field that Sabine is even training as a Jedi? I mean, I know it's kind of crazy to look back now after like seeing all 8 episodes, but it's like that was not a thing. People love to say, "Well, she was training with the dark saber," and no, no. Kanan and Ezra would have like sensed that. You know what I mean? Kanan was on Ezra's ass in the beginning of season 1, episode 1. He knew immediately what that kid had going on. I'm sorry, but I
mhm.
feel like this would have been seen in Sabine, and it was so out of left field. And I like when Star Wars kind of throws you into the mix of things, and
Mhm.
a good time jump is fine, but I don't feel like the story really justified the 10-year time jump anyways, and this is something I want to talk about a bit later on with some of the other episodes, but it's just something where I don't feel like the 10 episode or the 10-year thing was actually planned, because it's like there's so much story there. What do you mean Ahsoka and Sabine are they were training and now Ahsoka and Sabine have this beef, and Ahsoka's kind of a dick because we don't even find out what their whole problem is until later on into the season. So it just wasn't a great opener for me. I'm not gonna lie.
It was slow.
Yeah, and for that reason, I think it should go in D tier.
Oh,
Oh.
wow. That's a lot lower than I would have put it. I agree with everything that you both are saying, but I felt like when I initially watched this episode, I was very excited about it. Even though it
Mhm.
wasn't like hitting those marks or those storytelling beats, like I still was very optimistic about it. So I would go maybe like a C just based off my initial feelings and not based off of how everything played out.
That's
I
true.
mean, I personally, while there was bad, there was a lot of good too that we didn't touch on because it's easy to talk about the bad. Let's not forget the Phantom Menace parallels in the cinematography with
Oh my
Shin and
god,
Darth
yeah.
Maul.
The
It
Phantom
was
Menace too.
that was
Like,
really good, and so I personally was gonna put it in B,
ooh,
but it's it was a slow opening. I didn't like the lightsaber duel. It's essentially a two-part episode that they split. Like
mhm.
episodes 1 and 2 are one episode, but they decided to split it in two. Like, why couldn't we get an hour and a half opening episode? But that's well, no, we
Yeah,
didn't. That was the two of them combined. So
I just I don't like Dave Filoni's directing in live action. I'm sorry. I think his best episode was the he directed the first episode of The Mandalorian, and he did really good. And that was just like debut in live action, and I think he did really good.
Hmm.
But I haven't really liked many since. I mean, the Ahsoka episode in Mando was fine, but I don't really like his directing. And there's so many scenes where I feel like that really comes out, specifically between Ahsoka and Hera. They have like no chemistry, and there's so many
oh god,
lines
mm-mm.
where it's just so not only is it boring, but it's just like the things they're talking about are just so on the nose. It doesn't sound like they're talking to each other, characters that are actually experiencing the same things. Like I think about that scene where Hera and Ahsoka are talking about the map, and Ahsoka's like, the map to the last Imperial Grand Admiral, Iran. Like, girl, why the theatrics? Like Hera Syndulla knows, and you're talking about the guy who like took her son. Like, I'm pretty sure she knows,
Right.
but because we're doing this whole thing where it's in live action now,
Catch up.
Ahsoka has to speak to the audience directly, like kind of whisper in their ear and be like, "Hey, this is what happened in the show you refused to watch." So
You know what that reminds me of?
what?
When she says to Hera after Sabine takes the map, and she's like, "When I clearly told her not to."
Oh my
Oh
god!
my god.
Like, and holds her hand out like that for 10
Oh my
minutes.
gosh.
However, let's also remember, because now I've realized I'm gonna have to be pulling out all the positive stuff because y'all aren't going to.
Yeah, 7.
Let's not forget Sabine's introduction was iconic.
Okay.
Let's talk about Rebels fanboy over here wasn't getting off on Ryder Azadi and fucking what's his name? His little friend, Ezra's friend is the senator. Jake Jekyll. I don't know what's his name. You know,
Jai Kel, and
you didn't love that, and Lethal looked amazing.
did it.
I thought it looked good.
Okay,
Okay,
one of my issues is everything just looks so cheap, like the costumes.
oh my god, I love the costumes.
Lethal is an animated place. It's an animated location. It doesn't like the blades of grass actually look really cool, but there's so many things that just don't work in live action. Like the species that they have in that scene, or the costumes that Ryder is wearing. Or yeah, Jaikel was in it, but I didn't know that until I hopped on Twitter, because it's not like that guy looks anything like Jaikel. It just kind of feels like they were like, it realized in editing, like, oh, why don't we just have this be Jaikel? You know what I?
Well, some of us are content creators and watch with the captions on, so we knew who it was.
Well, some
And
of us were
Ryder,
standing in solidarity with SAG-AFTRA.
Dang.
so we've decided we're going with C for part 2.
C tier.
Okay, we have to be sure because we're basing all of our rankings of all the rest of the episodes are going to be around wherever we put Master and Apprentice. Which I guess C isn't too bad because it's like right in the middle, but
It's the compromise between my B and Austin's D.
Yeah.
oh, so I get 1 point.
And y'all didn't tell me we were taking points. I would have like prepared a lot harder for this. I would have trained for this moment.
Yeah, I mean, I can't lie. Crystal brings up a good point that the way I felt when watching it for the first time, I was fucking hyped. I was like, hell yeah, this is cool. I mean, I realized immediately a lot of the boring scenes, but I can't sit here and be like, oh, this turned me off like the way that Mando season 3 episode 1 did, or like Kenobi episode 1, where it was like, you can kind of tell where this is going.
We're living in the cylinder that is known as the volume.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Where every set is a circle and Hera is not on screen with anyone else in the whole show.
Except C-3PO.
Well,
and Chopper.
Right.
Speaking of, in Toil and Trouble, they at least make her a hologram this time.
Yes. Episode 2, Toil and Trouble. Sabine lives. She's fine. She's in a medical bay. Ahsoka's rude as fuck to her for whatever reason. She's like, that line with "you've done enough." I'm like, oh yeah, great way to make us just fall in love with your protagonist here. Watching Sabine basically sacrifice her life to keep this map safe, and Ahsoka's like, you've done enough. Like,
Okay, well, don't forget she did take the map when she clearly told her not to.
Oh my god. Yeah. Okay, fine. Whatever. This
Sabine did nothing wrong.
Yes, thank you. Like, she's just trying to help, man. Like, anyways, this is the Corellia episode where they go to Corellia.
Oh, no.
I'm not gonna lie, wasn't great to me, but hey, it felt like filler in kind of a good way, where it's like a respecting your roots kind of way, where it's like, you're from Star Wars Rebels, you're from the Clone Wars, like, yeah, let's do a little filler episode. And they tied it all together with like Merrick coming in and fighting Ahsoka and whatnot. So what'd you guys think of episode 2?
Okay, I would give it a C.
Okay.
Because again, it wasn't really hitting it for me. There's a lot of things that I didn't like, but there were things that I did like the Merrick lightsaber thing. Like, he was so cool and mysterious and
hot.
Yeah, there was some that's Scotty's boyfriend, if you're not up to date. But yeah, I didn't hate it.
Right.
I mean, I did hate the makeup, but we're not talking about that.
Oh, but we can now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We can now. The makeup was awful. I'm kidding. I would be okay with like a C or a D.
I think C as well. Scotty, what'd you think of Toil and Trouble?
Well, in my personal ranking, I ranked Master and Apprentice above Toil and Trouble. So I don't think Toil and Trouble as good as an episode as Master and Apprentice. And we have to think of this. This is the hard part. We got these episodes together, but we have to think of them as standalone.
Right.
So how did this
Okay.
episode stand on its own? I don't think it was as good as Master and Apprentice. We just talked about
Hmm.
the volume, and the Corellia was Volume City. I thought
Yeah.
Corellia looked horrible.
Yeah.
Specifically the scene when they're going through like the shipyard on the little cart, and I'm
Right.
like, and I caught myself thinking, I was like, they're not even moving. The screen's moving behind them. They're sitting still, probably. Like,
Right.
and that
Wow.
guy was
Yeah.
annoying, little Min Weaver, whatever his name was. I
Hmm.
mean, I will say the outside shots in Corellia looked a lot better than the shipyard. I thought the actual, like the dock where they're taking the hyperdrive from, where we get our battle with Sexy Mark and Ahsoka, like, oh,
Not
and that's when we
sexy
get,
Mark.
and then we get that shot of his butt in there too. Everyone wants to talk about Hera's butt. Nobody wants to talk about his butt. So,
Oh my god.
and
Yeah, I mean,
that was a fun duel. That was a good duel. And the lightsaber dodge. Now I sound like I'm talking it up.
it was all right. It was all right. But okay, consider this. This is my defense of the episode.
Okay.
Sabine has kind of like a little arc in this episode, and that's why I personally feel like it should go above Master and
Mm,
Apprentice, because we see her in the conversations with Huang. We start to finally understand a little bit more about like her insecurities and
yeah.
those kinds of things. And Huang has that line, that very direct line of being like, yeah, out of all the Jedi I know, you
You'd be the worst.
definitely, yeah, you'd definitely be the worst. But it doesn't mean you should give up and you shouldn't try. And I don't know, I really liked seeing that, and then have Sabine seeing that rebirth, and going from a shitty wig to an even shittier wig. It was a nice rebirth. And I don't know. I liked it. I liked that. And, for me as, Rebels fanboy, I did love the recreation of the epilogue. And people are trying to argue with me that it wasn't the same scene, blah 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 blah, all this stuff. It's the exact same scene. They made that clear when they had Ahsoka the White retcon in episode 5.
Well, she did just pull that out of her closet, so she could have worn it before. But we're not going to argue
Right.
that here.
It's it's the same. It's the
Right.
same thing. But I liked it. I liked
Yeah.
that part, and that's why I feel like, because mind you, I think Master and Apprentice would be D. That's why I think this episode would be C tier. Like, there's a
Well,
lot wrong with it, but
I don't think there's a lot wrong with it. I don't think it just stands super great on its own. With Master and
Mm.
Apprentice, I think it stands better. And I had it ranked as C on my ranking. So I'll go with C. Crystal hated the show and she said C, so
we'll put it behind Master and Apprentice though. Like, it still should go
Yeah.
behind.
Just want everyone to know that is 2 for Crystal Kyber.
Let's go, Crystal Kyber. All right, part 3, Time to Fly. A bit of a short episode. I don't want to start off again. So, how about how about you guys start by telling me what you thought about part 3, Time to Fly?
You need to remind me what the episode was about, because I
oh,
have spent the
Oh,
last month like blocking it from my
do
memory.
you want me to play co-host? Actual
Please.
co-host for once,
Yes.
and actually host. So honestly gets a break. So in this episode, and I'm gonna look at my notes because I'm not gonna be shy about it.
okay,
So
period.
we open up in this episode where Hu Yang and Sabine are training on the T6 on their way to Cetos, because
Mhm.
they got the tracker in the last episode, so they're on their way to Cetos now. Sabine, Hu Yang, Ahsoka. They have their little training montage. Ahsoka and Sabine have a little bit of a training session that kind of furthers their relationship, which was nice. They get to Cetos, and immediately Marek and Shin and the nameless bondage-looking Morgan Elspeth soldiers come and try to shoot them down. They don't get them. They run to the IS Scion, get blasted, don't die, crash land on Cetos. Meanwhile, um, Hera also meets with the New Republic in this episode too.
Period. Period. and
How
that
was
carried.
Austin? Was that good?
That was perfect. And that I just want to say the Hera stuff carried the entire episode. Seeing Jason Sandula for the first time, oh my god, I
Yes.
fucking love that kid. He's the future of Star Wars. Don't care what anybody has to say. It's funny too because like when he was introduced in Star Wars Rebels, it was like, oh god,
We all. And Crystal, you're the makeup one. So
Right.
I feel like you were probably most worried after seeing Hera about what Jason was going to look like in live
Oh, I
action.
was really worried about those green ears, the green hair. Like,
right.
We got the
Yeah.
green hair though.
yeah.
And technically we got the
works.
green ears because it's
Oh.
just covered, but the wig is covering
Oh.
his ears.
You know what I
We can
will
pretend.
say? I think one of the good things about this, and we see this, we all know this, as much as we love Star Wars, especially Star Wars animation, has a bad problem with whitewashing. I'm glad that
Right.
this is not some little white boy playing
Yeah.
Kanan's son.
Yep.
So that I appreciate. How did they do Jason so right and Hera so
Right.
something?
I know.
Okay, but like they made Hera look like shit, but Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I think, does an amazing job. And I think that this scene in episode 3 is where I really was sold. I was like, okay, because when she stood up to what's his name, Ziono,
Senator Ziono, yeah.
what
Dick.
an asshole. When she stood up to him and was like, so remind me, did you fight in the war or did you just sit back and wait to see who came out on top? I was like, okay, bitch. She knew it was up. And in that moment, I was like, Hera Syndulla.
Hunty Syndulla. Come on, mommy, let's go. Crystal, what did you think though? Because like we said, this is the short one.
I think it was okay. I mean, I feel like it was a lot of these episodes were very mild for me. Like if I had to rank it, I'd probably rank it C again. Yeah, like I really did like Hera. She gave me Hera. You know, she gave me the attitude of Hera. She was giving. The Hera was harrying.
Yes.
Sorry, I shouldn't talk like that. That's not how I talk.
This is Crystal. This is me and Austin's talk. You don't. This is just between us.
You too, not for me.
I shouldn't have played that video before we did this.
We should have played AHSOKA before we did this.
Goodbye.
I have a question. I have a question for you, Crystal, because you're my prequel girly bestie. You get it.
Get it.
Is it just me, or does any time we get politics in Star Wars, like post Return of the Jedi era, do you just love that? Because I eat that shit up.
I don't like it post original trilogy because I feel like it kind of like undermines everything that Luke went through.
I agree.
And so personally, I don't like that stuff. I think I do like the politics and like the prequels and in Clone Wars. I think it does a good job of setting it up. But anytime I get like any whiff of like Palpatine might return or the Empire is coming back, I'm like, oh, so fuck Luke.
Maybe I should rephrase this question because I'm trying to get you to agree with me. Do you enjoy watching it on the screen versus more political, less sequel trilogy? Because that was a big thing, as everyone said, there was too much politics in the prequels. But I personally think that side of the galaxy also is very interesting and entertaining. I think that's why I like the Clone Wars so much, because we get all that too. And it even brings some of our like Force users into the politics, whereas it's kind of like two separate sides. Have I sold you yet?
No. I mean, I feel you, but I'm not picking it up. You know what I mean?
That's okay. I mean, I get where you're coming from.
Right. I get where you're coming from as well. But the reason why I'm not ranking this episode any lower is because there were a lot of things that I liked visually. Like I liked that planet. What was the red planet called?
Cetos.
Cetos.
So with the red trees, right?
Yeah, and then that's the one where they fought, right? And then Merrick turned into like a...
Well, that's episode 4, but yeah.
Okay, but it like happens there. They like split up and stuff. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
I
they
thought it looked
crash.
cool.
This is where they crash, and then we end with that scene of Balin
Right.
getting ready to make a move, but that's when it ends.
Oh, got it. And then Time to Fly, that's like where Shin was fighting.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's parts that I liked.
I will say, yeah, I really did like the dog fight there. It that felt very prequel, and I don't know if it's just because Shin wears the same headpiece that Anakin wears in his battles. He even wears it in the 2D Clone Wars.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed that.
The fight's fun because that's when Sabine and Ahsoka first start working together too. Because they
Right.
have, it's like when they fall kind of back into their old ways. Finally,
Yeah.
after this
Mhm.
10 years of something.
Yeah. This is the space cartwheel episode where Ahsoka puts on a spacesuit and goes out
Ooh.
again.
Oh.
Oh, I loved it. To me, it felt very camp because it felt like the Clone Wars. It felt like an episode of the Clone Wars.
Somehow, Scotty was not a fan.
Oh,
I have mixed feelings. I feel like I'm right in between you two. Like, a part of me wants to like it, and then part of me is like, "Ooh, it's weird though."
right.
I think I might be more where you're at, Crystal, and only because Ahsoka's face looks like a green screen, like in the suit. Like her face looks like it's the only real thing in that scene to me. And I think that's where I need to suspend my disbelief.
Right.
So distracting.
D.
Yeah.
Oh, I would go with
D.
D.
I would say B. So I guess we're gonna have to put it in C.
B.
D.
Oh my
Yeah.
god!
Two Ds here.
Everything's gonna be in C at this rate.
I know the whole
like
spell season.
I like B. I think B tier because I like the episode. I like the vibes. It felt like a Clone Wars episode. The
It was
biggest
short
thing
enough
that
to be one.
yeah the biggest thing that I didn't enjoy is that it just felt like setup for the next episode.
Exactly.
So I don't know, but I still enjoyed it for what it was. I feel like just because it's set up doesn't mean that it's not good. It still has to. I know. We keep talking about like how these episodes stand on their own, but I mean, we gotta remember they aren't meant to stand on their own. They are part of an 8-part series.
Unfortunately, that's to their detriment, but that's a different podcast episode. Crystal, which category do you want to put it in?
D.
Okay, and I said D, and Austin said
B.
okay. Here's the thing: if I give in to this now, everything from here on, I am Grand Admiral Thrawn, and I am bringing war back to the galaxy because I ain't gonna be budging on some of these next few episodes. I'm willing to go with C only because these first 3 episodes are all set up. At the end of the day, they're all catch up. And I think that's why I like the second half of the season so much better because it's new at that point.
Right. I would be okay with it being a C, but not a B.
Yeah, no B.
Well, I enjoy it so much more than these other 2 episodes because, like you said, they are all set up. But I feel like this one's the most artistic one, where it's like we can do something here. We can have moments that, and it respects its roots. Like I know you don't love the whole thing. For me, here's the thing. I think the entire show looks like shit, and so for me, it's almost hard for me to like look at that and be like, that ruined the show for me, because if I start doing that, the whole thing is ruined. So
okay, hold on. So if this show looks like shit, what does Kenobi look like?
Like dog shit. Like,
oh, so regular shit looks better than dog shit?
Yeah, Ahsoka looks better than Kenobi, but it still looks horrible. Like
I think it's another point for Crystal Kyber. D.
D.
Oh, I mean C.
C tier, and that would mean that it's a point for none of us.
Right.
It's another point to Scotty's compromise.
Especially because
it is a C for a compromise for Crystal.
So just to be clear, y'all don't like you don't like part 1 or 2 better than this one, right?
You could put it before. Oh,
I would Master and Apprentice, Time to Fly, Toil and Trouble.
Okay. Crystal, you good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
How do I do that?
The tier list isn't good with that.
Oh, oops.
Okay. I feel like though we're actually getting into the meat and potatoes of the show because now this is
We have
where
a
shit
vegan
actually
here.
happens.
I was gonna
The
say, I was like, I'm not doing the meat. I'll just have the potatoes, please.
the potatoes and the potatoes, the sautéed onions and mushrooms and potatoes.
Oh, now
Uh,
we're talking.
for me,
Happy Thanksgiving, y'all. From
this
the
is the
Wayseekers.
episode. Yes, happy vegan Thanksgiving. We don't celebrate here, but we're excited to eat.
I
Okay.
will be recording a video. I won't even be eating, so
Austin is gonna edit all of this out.
and we'll never see the light of day. It'll go back with the Scotty cut.
And the bloopers for Patreon.
Episode 4, Shadow Warrior. In my opinion, the best episode. This is the episode where we have Balin and Ahsoka, they face off. Shin and Sabine face off. This is the episode where Merrick gets killed. This is
Rip.
where shit happens. Like the drama of this episode, the stakes, it's so good. Seeing Sabine, they set up this whole thing in the beginning with Ahsoka and Sabine saying, if we can't get this map, nobody can get this map, which means that you will have to destroy it if it comes down to it. And we're kind of like, oh, is Sabine gonna do that? And that adds so much stakes to this fucking map finally, because it's like, oh my god, like you guys have followed this map, and now we finally have a reason to fucking care. And so I enjoyed that, and seeing Sabine actually accept Balin's offer and Balin getting really deep into Sabine's insecurities and the things that she's, upset about. She feels like she's got no one left. Oh, he ate that shit up. He so good. So
It's
good.
it's like the one time in this show where like them giving us information works because he's pulling out of her mind, and while it's like telling the audience, because that's when we learn when her family died in the Night of a Thousand Tears, but he's doing it in a way to manipulate her into like pulling into her or like playing into her feelings. It's good. It's a good episode. Rip to my boy. I was very sad as he shimmies away. But even Hu Yang, like, he even proves that we've gotten somewhere when he's like, you guys work better when you stay together. Please do not do anything apart. And even though they're like kind of sarcastic about it, they're like, yeah, he's right.
Yeah. And then they split apart.
And that's when shit hits the fan, is it not? This episode's intense. Balin fucking slays this episode, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Well, like Balin.
This episode was really good.
Mm-hmm. I
feel like all the characters were making their own decisions, which sometimes things happen to characters. But this one, they kind of like, they put themselves in position. Like Sabine made the choice to give the map to Balin. Sabine made the choice to chase after Merrick. Like, they all made their own decisions, which I think is like good storytelling. And like you said earlier, Austin, like the stakes were so high and it kept us guessing. Like up until the minute that she gave the map to Balin, I was like, is she going to do it? Is she not going to do it? Like, I didn't want her to, but was she going to? Like, where's this going? Like, I was right there in it.
Yeah.
Here.
It's intense. Well, we'll see about B tier. So here's the thing. Ahsoka and Balin, their duel is amazing. When Shin shows up and like Ahsoka thinks Sabine's dead, that Shin defeated her, Ahsoka, she gets a little dark there. And like, and what do we see it do? It knocks her off her game. That's what gets her knocked off the cliff. I mean, Balin's clearly more like physically stronger than her. Not necessarily in the Force, but like physically, he's going to overpower her. So she needs to be on her A game to make sure she is going to defeat him. And she gives into her emotions in that moment, which was some good development for her, because what has everybody said the whole time? Ahsoka crosses her arms and she has no emotions. So we see her give into that. I love after Ahsoka falls off the cliff, because even though we talk about all this buildup and stuff, even though we know Ahsoka's not going to die, I was like, what the fuck happened to her? Like, I was still nervous about it. Unlike the
Yeah.
Sabine stab in, the first episode. Like that, I was like, oh, she's fine. And then
Right.
on top of that, when Sabine does show up, even before she offers to give the map, or like she gives it up to Balin, Shin fucking like chokes her with the force because she's
Mm-hmm.
pissed.
Yeah. It's kind of hot.
Oh, it is. Well, we haven't even talked about what is it, Ren Wolf, Wolf Ren?
Yeah. Yeah. They have so much chemistry. I have that right here in my notes. Sabine and Shin's chemistry is insane. Like
It's so good,
the lightsaber duels are like sex scenes. And
especially in this episode in comparison to the first one.
yeah, I S tier, S tier.
Oh,
Like 10 out of 10 episode, the best direction. Who directed this episode? Who? Because whoever the fuck it was put their whole Ahsoka C into this thing because
Ahsoka, see, okay.
Peter Ramsey, okay, Spider-Verse director. Of course he fucking did this episode because the direction is so amazing. Like I think of the shot where you have Sabine's helmet on the floor and it's just kind of going past, and it's like you're telling the story through visual, like through the cinematography. You're telling the story of what happened. You know, really utilizing the set you have. You know, Cetos is gorgeous. It's gorgeous, and seeing all the shit in the sky. He
Oh,
directed
we
the
get our
fuck out of this
purple
episode.
teases. Yeah, this one
Yeah.
is really good, and the volume's in it. There's some
Mhm.
scenes where I can pick it out, but like you said, I think it's used well here, unlike in other places.
Right.
So Crystal Kyber and getting a point this round, baby. It is S tier. Y'all talked
I
me
mean,
into it.
So S tier.
Talking about
I
it, I'm
mean,
like,
yeah, if we had to have like a best episode, it would be this one. If there had to be one.
if we have to make one of them the best one, I guess it's this one.
I just think
Yeah. I mean, I'll give it to you. We can go with S tier. Because it's like the bar is pretty low already. So
We can't put it in C. We gotta have.
we got,
So
we
I just
gotta,
think the writing's the best. I always say that the things I loved about like Andor and The Last Jedi, some of my top Star Wars projects. Please, before you click off, just listen to what I have to say. I feel like people in those projects, they actually get to speak to each other and talk about things,
yeah,
and this episode does that. Granted, is it the best dialogue? No, but it fucking tried. It tried. And I just think of the scenes with like Balin Skull specifically talking to Ahsoka, talking to Sabine. Everybody in the Order knew Anakin Skywalker, and then Ahsoka's like, "Well, he never mentioned you." I was like, "Oh, okay." Like I know
and
Dave
that
Filoni
was
is feeling real proud.
Well, and something I did like about that dialogue that you just said, Austin, about like, oh, everyone knew Anakin and we didn't know you. I feel like when it's that kind of dialogue, there's so much like subtext there, and like we as the viewer can think like a million different things. Like, was Balin jealous? Like, what was the overall consensus? Like, what it allows us as the viewer to like have a little bit of imagination about the story, whereas like the first 3 episodes was all like exposition, and we're like told what happened. We weren't able to like imagine it. So,
Right. Yeah.
and on top of that, we're forgetting the high, not the highlight of the episode, the finale of the episode, if you will, the transition of the water into the world between worlds. Ahsoka wakes up. We see the sparkly floor, and we're like, "Is Dave Filoni doing it? Are we doing it?" She gets up. She turns around, and who is it? Anakin fucking Skywalker. And then it ends.
Wow.
Mr.
And then
Star Wars himself.
the
Wow.
poster boy of the Jedi Order, as one might say. Everyone knew Anakin Skywalker, so
Right.
like there he is in the flesh, and he's like, "Oh, I didn't think you'd be here so soon." Like,
Right.
and then it ends. how is that not like top tier, Crystal? On top
All
of
right, I
all that good
agree.
stuff,
Mm,
and then it goes into straight fan service at the end. Like people want to complain about fan service, but like this was good.
I don't
I'm here
know.
for it.
I don't know.
I'll give it to you.
I cried.
I don't know.
Whatever. It gets
I
a
was
cry point from Scotty.
I was avoiding mentioning that part because then I would have to rank it lower. So
Oh my god.
Oh, because of the
why
wig.
not even the wig. I was so confused why he looks so airbrushed, especially because in the next episode he looks great. And for me, I don't know. It was cool because it was like it ended, and so I didn't know what happened next. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
exactly.
I could be like, oh, that's cool, like, because it wasn't. I couldn't sit here and say they didn't utilize him enough or anything. However, as we get into part 5, Shadow Warrior, you're not gonna like my opinion on this episode. Do I need to recap it? I feel like we know what happens in this episode.
Yeah.
This is the Clone Wars. This is Siege of Mandalore.
So why don't we talk about the other parts of that? Because I feel like some things we can't agree on. We get the New Republic, they get there.
Uh-huh.
We're forgetting the whole Hera basically says, fuck y'all, I'm going to Cetos anyway. And she's got Carson Teva, the guy who plays the Mandalorian under the suit, not Zeb, missed opportunity,
Right.
but that's
Right.
besides the point. They get fucked up because as they arrive, the Eye of Sion just goes into hyperspace. They make it, they land, and then we get the whole thing with Jason hearing the lightsabers and the waves. He gets Hera to tap in and hear it. We get that super emotional moment with Hu Yang when he's like, they never listen. They never listen.
Okay, yeah,
And I
that
know
shit.
y'all felt a little something.
Oh yeah, I don't cry in movies and shows, but that almost had me.
And
I
that's like from the jump.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I say this every time we talk about droids, but droids are dogs for me. And dogs in movies, if something happens to the dog, it ruins you, and that's me with droids. Seeing Huang fucking almost in tears, you could tell he was almost in tears, droid tears, about to start leaking out zeros and ones. But I, yeah, I think that stuff was fantastic. Like, definitely, even afterwards, seeing Ahsoka and Jason together, or seeing the rebirth of Ahsoka, where it's like afterwards she's acting nice now. She's
She's
acting,
laughing, she's smiling, she hugs Jason, and she
yeah.
laughs.
My thing with that is it's just none of it's earned. But before I start complaining, what do you think, Crystal?
Even though I dislike this episode the most, it was the most memorable. I think maybe because of like how much I didn't like it, and I'm such a Clone Wars girly, and this just like I don't know, there was just such a huge disconnect for me, and it was like the most prominent parts of the episode were just like such a flop. But and then we get like the jump scare. Ahsoka the White's jump scare. Her like bald head.
Ahsoka the bald.
Bald
Ahsoka the bald.
Ahsoka.
That was very interesting. I don't know if we needed to see that. But yeah, she did have her little laugh at the end. But I don't know. This was definitely E tier for me. Worst episode. I think I had too much expectations going into it, but I just thought it was done very badly.
Yeah. E tier for me as well. I
Y'all both saying E?
Yeah.
Yeah, E.
Absolute worst.
Oh,
F
Jesus
X
Christ, I
D
can't
W
wait. Okay,
Q R
I'm
S
gonna
T
let,
U
I'm gonna
V.
let y'all finish.
Thank you, Kanye. So E tier,
Do not
because
compare me to that man, but you will bring it out of me because we are both Geminis, unfortunately. And I'm about ready to fight. I'm about ready to be the Shadow Warrior here.
well, okay. I understand that, for people that like to have keys jangled in front of them, this is like Godfather Part 2 for them. But for me, I see through the bullshit. I'm sorry, that sounds so elitist, but it's true. It's a bullshit episode. Okay, Okay, Ahsoka the White. I love seeing how she came out, and she's so much better now. She's so much nicer, and she gets to wear lighter clothing because she's nice. But why? Why did that happen?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
changed within her that we see this entire Clone Wars flashback where it's like Anakin's like, I have one last lesson to teach you, Ahsoka, live or die. And it's like, oh, Ahsoka learned the lesson that she wants to live. Did anybody know she wanted to fucking die? I wasn't aware. Like, where did
She
that
chooses to live.
Oh my god! Like,
Right.
congratulations. You know, like,
Well, I have a
Yeah.
question because I'm not going to let y'all just sit here and shit on it the whole time. So I'm going to try to spin it. What did we think of Ariana Greenblatt's Ahsoka?
fine.
Not a fan.
Like, you know, I think that she's a great actress, and I think that she did her all. And one aspect I really liked, I will give it to you, seeing Ahsoka as like a child, like it puts it into perspective.
Oh,
Like that little 10-year-old girl, I'm sorry, she's like 16. That 16-year-old girl, seeing
she's
her
not
go around.
16 till the Siege of Mandalore. She's like 14 in the test
Well,
scenes when it's
I'm talking
pink.
about I'm talking about Ariana Greenblatt.
Oh,
She's
okay.
16. Um, and you know, we see her in the Siege of Mandalore, and it's crazy to think like that little girl fought Darth Maul. Like, you know what I mean? It puts it into perspective. I really appreciate that. But I don't know. Actually, Ariana Greenblatt did good because what Ariana is doing is she's trying. She has to be young Ahsoka with the mindset of older Ahsoka. So in that regard, I think she did fine. You know, but that's just because any faults that she has, I feel like that just comes with, what she has to work with, what she
Directing,
has to.
writing.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the fact that she has to base her performance off of Rosario Dawson's, which is kind of nothing like animated Ahsoka. So she has to like be the interconnectiveness there, and that's a lot to
Yeah.
do, and there's a lot to pull off. So actually, I take back everything I said. I think she did great.
So
But
you're thinking A tier now, maybe?
fuck
Oh, ooh,
no,
no.
fuck no, it's still E tier all day long. It's just
E tier.
like you're gonna bring back Anakin Skywalker and do this to me where there's nothing. You're gonna give me nothing. There's so much
You
that
think
could
he
have
gave
been.
nothing?
No, I mean, like, as a performance he gave everything, but as for the character, what the fuck was he doing there?
I mean,
Right.
you guys bring up valid points, and even I mean, we mentioned the VCs that we would do together afterwards, and like, yes, was I crying? Did almost like 2,000 people watch me cry on YouTube about this episode? Yes,
uh,
and I'm fine with that. I ugly cried, I sobbed, whatever.
mhm.
But at the end of the day, I did agree. Like, I was like, I don't really know what she learned, and I know now. I guess they were saying that she was trained to be nothing but a soldier, and she was scared that her legacy was just going to end up like Anakin's, where it was nothing but death and
Mm,
negativity and whatever. And that's why she was the way that she was, because she was so traumatized by everything. But
right.
in y'all's defense, I only know this because I watched the animated shows. For people not watching it, yeah, I could see where they would just be like, "Oh, she fought Anakin, who I finally now know as her master, but I don't know why,
Yeah.
because he didn't have a
Right.
Padawan and some bullshit like that." Um, but I'm not willing to put it lower than A.
Well, you're gonna have to, because here's the thing.
Right.
It sucks. It's just using your love for the animated show and your love for
Right.
Anakin
And
Skywalker.
I will suck the
That's
Clone Wars dick dry in
that's not
anything coming to it.
storytelling. That
Easy
is
because there's nothing in there.
that is not storytelling. The
Yeah.
way, especially because we're coming from a franchise called Star Wars, made by George Lucas, the man
Oh
who.
no, 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 no. We're not doing this George Lucas Star Wars. Don't be pulling
Oh,
this on me.
oh, yes, we are. Yes, we
Oh
are.
Christ.
Because Ahsoka started out under George Lucas,
Are you gonna hate
and you
crime
can
me next?
and you can see the love George Lucas had for storytelling, where, okay, the prequel trilogy, everyone wanted, he's talked about this all the time, everyone wanted a trilogy of Darth Vader. In the first movie, Anakin Skywalker becomes Darth Vader. In the next two movies, he's just killing Jedi for the rest of the time. That's what they wanted. And if George Lucas wanted to make $2 billion in the most successful movies of all time, he could have done that. But you know what he did instead? He made political thrillers that we all fucking love nowadays, that were extremely shitted on before. And he
But
didn't
we
give a
loved
fuck.
them then too.
You know what George Lucas did? He said, you don't like this first movie? Well, I'm going to make two more. And I'm going to make a fucking animated series. And what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? This is my artistic vision. And now we're here. Where they're like, here's
Right.
Anakin Skywalker. Tune in, guys. We're going to post the poster of Anakin Skywalker on the same day because we're just begging people to fucking watch this show.
The poster was bad too. He didn't look very good in it.
And my thing is, with this episode, I feel like there was so much you could have done, and I hate to be that person where it's like, well, in my mind, this is what could have happened. But the biggest, the most obvious thing going against Ahsoka, in my opinion, the thing that she should have learned is that Anakin's fall to the dark side is not her fault. She did not do that, and there was nothing she could have done to stop that. And I think that that would have been a much more useful idea of these flashbacks and having everything literally showing that no matter what you did, he would have fallen to the dark side, and you're not that. You're going beyond him, and you are his legacy. That's kind of what they did, but it just feels like a more shallow version of it, where it's like, yeah, you are what they grow beyond. But it's also weird too, because Anakin Skywalker, you want to tell me he's sitting here, Ahsoka's like, your legacy is one of death and destruction, and he's like, is that what this is all about? Acting like all he did was back in the day, maybe kill a cockroach or something. Like, he's like, is that what you're still mad about? That bitch, you brought galactic turmoil and oppression to this entire galaxy. What do you mean? Is that what this is all about?
Right. Yeah.
E tier.
Yeah, there was so much about it where it was like, it was so disconnected and disjointed, and kind of like what you were just saying, Austin, of it being more about like Ahsoka not feeling responsible or guilty for Anakin, considering the last time that she saw him was Darth Vader when she was about to like die herself. Like it didn't really, like, all the context that we had before this show didn't make it into this show. Right. And I think that's why it didn't like hit emotionally for me. And then all these points about like, oh, this is what the story meant, or we can interpret it this way. It was so foggy because it was memories and this and this and this. But I'm like, but it wasn't done well. Like, I get it, but it wasn't good.
It was not.
So y'all think, so regardless of the good things we have talked about it, you think that there's nothing redeeming about it? Because I will compromise and not put it in S tier, but I'm not going to put it in E tier. I'm not going to put it in anything below C tier.
Well, C tier
below, really? I think it's behind C tier. Like, at the very least, it's behind Master Apprentice, Time to Find, Toil and Trouble.
Okay, Scotty, you're really gonna sit here and say, you're gonna be like, yeah, having Anakin Skywalker show up and come through the screen and suck my dick is good storytelling.
I mean, that's what I said. I said I agree that I think that stuff only works because I have the context and I didn't understand exactly what happened. But there's still good in the episode. It's not a completely horrid episode, which is why I'm willing to compromise. But I'm not putting it. If I said S and y'all said E, if we're gonna compromise, C is the answer.
But you said A, so D is the answer.
D tier.
Oh. But I have like another point.
Okay.
So Scotty, we're prequels fans. They're not the best movies. We can acknowledge that, but we still love it. We can acknowledge that Shadow Warrior was not good, but you can still like it.
Mm-hmm. And where was Attack of the Clones on Scotty's ranking? S tier. So I will suck off the nostalgia of whatever till the very last drop.
Let me ask you this: when you cried, because it's been a while since I watched your reaction episode,
Maybe
Why did you
maybe
cry?
that should have been required viewing.
What specifically made you cry?
So I cried because I've got to be strategic here because I know if I say certain things, you're going to use it against me. Um, I cried at being able to see Anakin and Ahsoka on screen interacting in the Clone Wars as themselves, and
I enjoyed
also
that
the
too.
journey that Ahsoka goes on in kind of recontextualizing everything and then coming out reborn as Ahsoka the White. Now, will I agree that it's a little muddied? Yes.
Mhm.
However, it's not shit.
I knew
Well,
that this was going to be the episode that we were all going to.
listen, I also enjoy seeing Anakin and Ahsoka on screen. And that's why, for 15 years, I tuned into this little show called The Clone Wars, where they were on screen together for 98% of the fucking runtime. And
Mhm.
so, for that reason, I don't feel like I hated this shit on Twitter, and it bothered me so much that I couldn't talk about it because people were like, I just feel so validated as a Clone Wars fan today. Seeing this come, is it really validating? Was it, if you're such a Clone Wars fan, was it not validating seeing the entire story come together in a 4 arc animated movie, basically, where it's the most cinematic thing of all time, the Siege of Mandalore? Like, is it really validating? What exactly is validating about, to me, that just it's like you just look at animation as lesser than, and people love on
Here's
Twitter,
the thing.
animation is cinema, animation is cinema, and then they're like, oh my god, yes, I'm gonna go watch the Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast live action because I feel so validated now. It's like, why do
Okay,
you
I
feel
do not give
validated?
in to that shit. However, once again, if I am willing to compromise and admit that there's bad in the episode, I don't see why y'all can't compromise in the good that is there.
Like, there were good things about this episode, but it just left such a bad taste in my mouth. Like, from start to finish, I was just like, dude, what? Like, I
We,
couldn't, I was just I was in shock. Like, I think maybe it would have been better if Ashley Eckstein did voiceover,
oh
maybe,
Jesus, here we go. Had to bring her up.
because the show didn't. So I will. Also, we finally got Rex in live action also, and like he was 30 feet in the background. Like,
No,
I don't,
don't
there's just so
forget
much.
Siege of Mandalore when we get a close up because I cried. I started crying again, and he says, come on, let's go." And
That's it.
He
I
doesn't even
know,
That's
say.
it.
You
I
just
know.
you just cried because he appeared.
Yep.
He stepped
That,
out
I
of the
mean,
fog so you could see
right.
him a little bit better.
I
Like I
wanted him
said,
to take off his helmet. I wanted it to be our boy Tim Morrison, and like I wanted this moment I wanted moments that never happened. And
okay,
I think
well,
because it was so
mm,
visceral for me, it's like an E. But I'll go to a
I'm
D.
willing, yeah, I'm willing to admit there's good in the episode, and for that reason, I think it should go in D tier.
we can continue for time, and we can come back to this at the end.
Oh no, no.
I respect your opinion a lot, Scotty, and I know that you love this, so I'm sorry that it's an E.
No, I'm sorry. I love you. I love your
I
opinion.
do.
I respect it, but
You're
no.
valid.
I do feel like you got piled up against. So I will say there is good in the episode. Like I said, Jason and Ahsoka love that. I love the way Ahsoka acts afterwards. The whole ending feels very hopeful. Granted, it went on for way too long, but whatever, it's fine. The whole show did, and so I I don't know. I listen. I just don't know if I could put it in C tier morally.
You can
Like,
put it last in C tier.
Oh,
but
wow.
that's just
That is a big compromise on Scotty's end. I respect that. But
I mean, it's not my ranking. This is our combined ranking, so it doesn't have to be accurate to mine. However, I'll
wow.
compromise and put it in C tier at the end, but that's my final offer.
listen.
For
It's
time's
just,
sake, you should just take it. Like, we got to move
but,
on.
but I'm no
This-
bitch. I just don't think I just don't think that, because to me what your argument sounds like is, well, there's things I enjoyed that I have seen before and were there again. And how is that in any way S tier?
I'm not arguing S tier anymore. I said back of
Well,
C.
well, but that's the thing, is the reason you want it in C tier is because you think it's S tier. And so
For the people listening, I'm nodding my head in agreement. Yes.
and so I just don't see how that makes any sense.
Well, I am confrontational when I have to be, and
Mhm.
so I'm not budging. Back of C.
Crystal, what do you
Back
think?
of
Do you
C.
think we
Crystal
should
agreed with me.
I mean, I don't think that Shadow Warrior is going to get any lower from Scotty. And while I disagree with them respectfully, um, I feel like if that is going to be like the three of our rankings, then it'd probably
C
be
is right in
C.
the middle. Yeah. Okay, but I don't feel good about this.
I don't feel good about it either. But for the sake
I
I
of
don't feel good
like,
about it either, but it is what it is.
I think
I
there's
thought I was going to be here fighting for my life, but it's Scotty.
I think there's a holy trinity of shit Star Wars, and it goes The Rise of Skywalker, Book of Boba Fett Chapter 6,
Oh, God.
and Shadow Warrior.
Oh, wow.
And those are like, if you go to make a bad Star Wars movie, like Taika Waititi, he's going in making a bad Star Wars movie. Before you do that, you have to meet with those movies. They sit in thrones, and you go into a little room, and they tell
You
you,
bring your little
"Do you have
chicken.
do you have what it takes to be as shitty as us?"
And you
And
suck them off. You suck off each of the movies to get their permission. Just
exactly,
like me in this episode and my bullshit foggy Clone Wars. Next
yep,
part.
yep. Far, far away. Part
Let's get
6.
far, far away from Shadow Warrior and move forward.
Yes. So
What
this
the
episode.
fuck even happens in this episode?
E tier, no kidding. D.
So this is the episode where Ahsoka's not in it. And
Oh, so y'all should love it.
we get the beginning. This is where Thrawn's introduced. This is where the Night Sisters are introduced. We go to the
Right.
new galaxy. Here's my thing. My one thing, and then I'll let y'all talk. They keep hyping up this new galaxy. Oh, we're going to this new place. It's going to be new and innovative. We're taking Star Wars to a new place. And it's boring as shit. It's boring as all hell. The location is boring, and I know that was the point, is that it's supposed to be old and run down and whatever, but it's just another boring sand planet that looks like it was filmed on the lot of, like the back of San Diego, but it wasn't, because it was filmed on the volume. So
I will say I really liked the Night Sisters. Are they great mothers or are they just Night Sisters?
Great mothers.
They were amazing. They gave me
were.
everything they needed to. Their makeup was awesome. Their clothing was awesome. I liked the three of them. I liked the symbolism of or the reference to Greek mythology. I thought that was
Oh,
really
yeah.
cool. I kind of liked that the planet was really shitty, because it kind of had this feeling of doom. We're going to get stuck here. We're going to, yeah, it kind of had this oh God, why are we here? This sucks sort of thing.
Right.
And it felt very final as well. But I didn't like the Thrawn reveal. I was pretty bummed out about him. And I think because we got an Enoch reveal moments before. And so I felt like that took away from Thrawn. Is this where we also got an Ezra reveal?
Yeah,
Yes,
at the end.
in the end of the episode, yes, we did.
I think I would rank this episode higher just because of Ezra. I think that he's very charming. There's also a few moments with Sabine that I liked. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that I actually love the Thrawn stuff. For me personally, I really like Lars Mikkelsen as Thrawn. I think that he does
Mhm.
great. I think that the makeup, they do everyone dirty, and so like I said earlier, if I start basing my opinion of this show on how things look, the entire thing goes to shit. So
Yeah.
I I liked that. My whole thing with this episode and kind of the following 3 episodes, in kind of what I touched on earlier, this whole 10-year thing clearly was never meant to happen.
It fucked it up a bit with the whole we have to just skip the original trilogy.
Yeah. And the whole
Hmm.
10-year thing happens because it has to take place after The Mandalorian. Because there's things like Ezra and Thrawn, their whole thing. It's not really explained what they've
That
been
was
doing.
bizarre.
And one thing, Crystal, you brought up, you love Ezra. I love Amanis Fondi as Ezra too. But as time goes on, I'm starting to realize something, that he's almost too close to what Ezra was before,
Hmm.
where,
Hmm.
in my opinion, they don't do a really good job of showing that Ezra was gone for 10 years, ripped away from his entire family. He's just bright and cheery, like, it took you long enough, or I knew I could count
Oh
on you.
no. He's the opposite of
Right.
Ahsoka. Like
Yeah,
Rosario's
Mm.
Ahsoka is completely, like, for the most part different than animated Ahsoka. And you're
yeah,
right, Amanis Fondi is like the perfect Ezra because he's acting like the Ezra we know.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I don't think
Interesting.
that's his fault, because I think it was Tet who brought this up, was that, well, what's probably going to happen is they probably kind of regressed his character because they're going to have him go on this journey within the Mando
Mhm.
verse of growing up, and but my thing is that happened in
I hate
Rebels.
that.
By the end of
Yeah.
Rebels, he was already like that. In fact, he was really depressed. He was fucked up in the last few episodes of Rebels, and now 10 years later, he's here. He's all bright and cheery, and it's not explained like what went on with Thrawn and Ezra. And it doesn't feel like they were there for 10 years. Like what
Oh my
Thrawn
Hmm.
god.
has, there's you want to tell me he was sitting there for 10 years? Like his costume has a few burn marks in it that probably happened because Lars Mikkelsen was smoking cigarettes behind the scenes, and like like that's really all the wear and tear of 10 years. Like, come on, I want to see the
This
dirty
is
boxers.
oh, well. This is really weird only because Crystal and I were so dark side Ezra,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
then we just accepted that that wasn't the case. And in watching it, I was like, really, Ezra's just chilling on the planet, and Thrawn just like let him go.
Hmm.
Like Thrawn would have been ready to kill Ezra. Ezra was ready to sacrifice himself to
Hmm.
kill Thrawn, and they got there and they were just like, "All right, bye, Ezra. Have fun. We're gonna stay on our ship, and
Right.
you go figure some shit out." So, oh, this makes it so rough because I really like this episode too. I really like the Great Mothers, like Crystal said. If we want to argue about makeup, once again, like Crystal said, their makeup probably slays the most in this.
Yeah.
They
They
look
look great.
they look amazing. I think that Ezra looks great. He doesn't look like he did. He has a beard now, and that's always fucking like, look, he's grizzled and rugged now.
Right.
Um, maybe there's hope that we'll get him with a green lightsaber after he makes his little journey in the Mandoverse again. Since we're
Right.
repeating that.
Right.
Yeah.
Ooh, this is tough. I'm like, where do I want to put this episode? Part
Right.
of me, I'm like, is there anything that we're missing? They get
Um,
there, get thrown. Go ahead, Crystal, if you remember.
I do. We haven't talked about it because it was so lackluster.
Oh God.
But we talked about Ezra, but we didn't talk about Ezra Sabine reunion. And I
Right.
know you two know how I feel about their reunion, but I felt like it was so flat.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing to them, and we didn't really get anything from them for like the next few episodes. But
Hmm.
yeah, I was
Except
really
Sabine.
disappointed.
Well, we got Sabine dodging the question every time about how she even got
Right.
there.
Right. So here's the thing: is this is an episode that when I first watched it, I was like, "This is amazing." The third time I watched it, this is amazing. But as time has gone on and I keep thinking about it and just like how these characters have developed, because that's something I think about a lot, is how we had these discussions before where you guys wanted to see Ezra turn to the dark side, and my thing was always that's a crazy thing to happen off screen. But this is just like the other side of the extreme where it's like you
Mm.
regressed his character back to what he was before off screen. And again, I think it just comes down to this story wasn't meant to take place 10 years after. It's clear that this story, I mean, I have all my little theories and all my evidence and things and articles and whatnot that tie into it, but it's just clear that this story was meant to be. Dave Filoni wanted to tell the story of the Mandalorian, like of Mandalore, and how like all this stuff we're hearing about Sabine's family and stuff. I can almost guarantee you that when Dave Filoni first pitched his Mandalorian show to Kathleen Kennedy, which mind you is the reason he's working on the Mandalorian,
Yeah.
because they combined two projects, I can almost guarantee you all this stuff about Ursa Wren and the Night of a Thousand Tears and
Bo-Katan in general.
yeah, Ahsoka and Sabine training, all that would have been in this show. And
Oof,
so
God.
I feel like this show really shows it. And for me, I really do think that the whole thing with Ezra is because we just need people to be on the same page. And to me, that's what this whole series is. We'll talk about in the end, but we started off in almost the same place that we started, with characters in a distant galaxy.
Mm.
And it's just because we need to
Yeah.
get live action and animation fans on the same page. And that's what this entire season of this show felt like to me.
I think we get some good Balin and Shin. Something I
Mhm.
feel like I wish we got more of in this entire series. But we get some good, like, figuring out that Balin's searching for this new thing, which is an exciting part of it because, as we kind of talked about at the beginning, they're like the new thing.
Right.
That's why people
Right.
like them so much, because there's so much intrigue there. I could argue about the Ezra thing and say that, well, Ezra was taken away from everything he knew, so he regressed back to what he was prior to his growth
Mhm.
because he had none of that support system around anymore.
Right.
But I'm not trying to sit here and argue that because it's whatever. Um, I think this episode. mm,
I know this one's a hard one.
I'm thinking A or B.
I was thinking B.
I definitely like it better than Master and Apprentice, so I think that's fair. I think B's
B
fair.
it is.
B it is. All right. Part 7.
Scotty's like, I gave up all my arguing spoons.
No, I mean I'm fine with that. This episode's good, but it's like once again we just run into this whole. I'm trying to ignore, not trying to ignore what you're saying, Austin, but I'm like when we talk about like what happened out of universe, like behind the scenes, I'm like it just taints the whole thing. So I'm like,
Right.
oh god, don't
Mm.
focus on that. Let's focus on what we got.
Mhm.
And I
Well,
do like the introductions, even though Thrawn shit is all camp and they're like Thrawn, woo. Captain Enoch is very scary and unsettling. We see Sabine growth. Like there's a lot of good in this episode. We see her like even though she's with the bad people, like she's like,
mhm.
well, fuck y'all, I'm gonna go see. And can we talk about the Howler? The Howler's so cute.
Oh, love the Howler.
Yeah.
That was a fun
I love
introduction,
that.
and the Noti are cute too. Like
Yeah. It's just one of those things where when you look into the behind the scenes, it's like before we knew about the volume, we probably would have never been able to tell. But now that we know that the volume exists, we can see it in every single shot.
I
Mm.
don't think we
Mhm.
see it in the shots out of the temple. I don't notice it.
I see it in almost everything. And then the things that I don't see it in are blue screens. Because then they show up in the behind the scenes and it's just blue screens. And I'm like, well, there you go.
I know. I saw that. I was like, it looks like the prequels all over. I thought they were moving
Right.
away with it, but
It's just the behind the scenes thing. Like it ruins everything. And as we're recording this video, I'm in the middle, or as we're recording this podcast, I'm in the middle of making a video about why I think Ahsoka turned out the way it did, and looking at all this behind the scenes stuff and going all the way back to when Lucasfilm first started. And now it just ruined my whole perception. The same thing happened with the recent Spider-Man movie No Way Home, where I know that won't mean anything to you guys, but in the movie, basically they forget Peter Parker. Everyone forgets Peter Parker, right? And you think, oh, that's a really good story decision, but then you look at the behind the scenes, and the whole reason they did that is because Sony and Marvel have a contract where they're basically borrowing the character, and so they can make future Spider-Man movies with Spider-Man, but none of the characters, because they don't remember him. And it's things like that that kind of spoils the whole thing for you. It's like, ugh.
Ooh, Dusty, you were on a slippery slope.
I know.
This is
I don't
going
know.
into like a villain era. I can
Whoa.
see it happening.
Yeah.
Don't give in.
Yeah. Well, it's just hard to look at these things and be like, I don't know, because like the prequels, you look at how they're not great, and it's not because George Lucas was just trying to make money off of Star Wars. You know what I mean? He still put his artistic intent behind it. But anyways,
They digress.
6. Yeah, you can watch my video about it. It's probably 2 hours long. Oh wait, no, episode 7. I'm sorry. This is Mon Mothma's scene. We finally see Mon Mothma in the flesh, and this is Hera's trial, where she has to answer for everything that happened. And C-3PO comes in on behalf of Leia Organa, a beautiful use of the character and including the main trio in this story without doing unethical things. You know, I appreciated that, and I really liked this scene because I didn't get to touch on this, but Scotty, you said you really like the political stuff in Star Wars. Fully agree. 100% agree. Like it's just nice to see this argument and this bickering, especially because this is all a reaction to the sequel trilogy and having to explain why the Empire basically came back, and you see how incompetent the New Republic is for that reason. I feel like it's taking a shitty situation and turning it into something all right. But then the rest of the episode is just kind of Ahsoka, Ezra.
This is when Ahsoka finally arrives.
Yeah, she arrives in the galaxy and they team up and they're just all kind of fighting. It's really the whole episode.
I mean, there's some good to it. We see Thrawn strategizing and trying to combat her, to keep her from coming. The poor Purrgil get bombed because of the minefield. That was the poor Purrgil. And then it was cool seeing Ahsoka show off some of and I assume her piloting skills that she would have learned from her time with Anakin. Like, that was cool to see her. And that was kind of one of the things I was excited about. I was like, ooh, Ahsoka's getting her own ship. So we're actually going to see her like be a pilot, which plenty of people said that Anakin was like one of the best pilots in the galaxy. And he did some crazy shit, and that gets brought up in this episode too. So it's like some of those gripes y'all had with Shadow Warrior. Like it was done well, coming back and paying homage to the Clone Wars kind of stuff in those scenes. And it kind of did the same for Thrawn, being like, look at Thrawn, he's a tactician. Like if you watched our Thrawn PowerPoint episode, you'll know that Thrawn was very much a tactician and a very skilled person.
That's one of my gripes with Thrawn in this series is it feels like I don't want to call Dave Filoni dumb, but for lack of a better term, it feels like a dumb man's version of Grand Admiral Thrawn, where Grand Admiral Thrawn is tactical, but if you were to really boil it down to its simplest form of what Thrawn does, a lot of the times it does boil down to the thing that you thought was going against his plan was actually his plan all along.
That was kind of dumb.
And it was so on the nose, where it's like, Was it really your plan all along, Thrawn, to have Ahsoka show up? Because I feel like there was parts of this where you were directly saying the exact opposite, and you all seemed like you were shitting your pants about this loose thread. So,
Right.
um,
Well, Crystal, we've talked a lot. What are
yeah,
your thoughts on the episode?
I did really like when they were flying through the boneyard.
oh yeah,
That was cool. I think there was like a lot of cool moments, and I think you and I were talking about this, Scotty, about how this episode was very like spooky. You know, we got
Yeah.
a lot of like alluding to like the zombies and are they carrying caskets? Who's in the caskets? We also got this is where Ahsoka and Balin fought, right?
The second
yes,
time, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And then Shin gets left behind. I think I wish I had more of them as well, like more of their story
yeah.
and more like character develop between them. I did really like the reunion between Ahsoka and Ezra in this one. It felt very like real to me. Um, but I don't know. I think I liked this one a little bit more. Maybe like B tier for me.
Okay, yeah. I think my thing is, it felt like, and we'll definitely talk about this with the next episode. It felt like we were really rushing to get to the end here, which is a little weird because it
Mm-hmm.
felt like the first 4 episodes was really stretching to get started, and then it's
Yeah.
like
Mm,
we're just gonna go super quick and we're just gonna get it over with. Where it's like
right.
Balin's skull and Ahsoka's fight was really cool, but it feels like it just ends randomly. Where it's like Ahsoka's like, "Well, I don't have to kill you." I'm like, I mean, yeah, I guess not, because he was supposed to show up in sequels, I presume, but that may not happen. And so I
I
just,
thought that moment, I thought it kind of showed her growth from what she learned.
yeah, I
Hmm.
Because
mean,
before she was just going at him with force, and now she was like, I don't even need to waste my time fighting you because you're not the issue.
right. But I mean, that
Mm,
comes after 5 minutes of her fighting him. You know what I mean? So it's like, it just felt out of left field. And then, like, putting in context what happens in the next episode, where we see Balin and Shin, they split apart in this episode, and you're like, "Ooh, that's interesting. What is Balin's entire plan?" Because so far he seems like he was pretty caring for his apprentice, and now he's just like
Mm-hmm.
kind of dumping her, and you're like,
yeah.
"What is that?" Because that could be cool. Like that does come out of left field, but you can make that work. But in my opinion, they didn't make it work because, as we know,
Yeah.
we never get any explanation for what Balin Skull's actually doing.
I
Right.
think I think it relates to the title, Dreams and Madness. Like, I think he's getting so enveloped in whatever he's seeking that he's getting like tunnel vision for it, and that's why he's like, Shin, this isn't your path. But I feel like that's also him being a little caring in the sense of like, I know you don't care about this. I know this is not what you want. Did I kind of feel like he dumped her because he was like, I got to go do what I need to do? Yeah, unfortunately we need more context with them because we don't know. They
Well,
could
that's
have been
the
at the
thing.
point where like this was the end of her training essentially and she learned everything she needed to know.
Well, that's the
Who
thing, is
knows?
we don't know, and until we do know, I can't look at this and be like, "That was really great for the Ahsoka series." For
Mm.
That's the thing, is when I look at the entire Mandoverse at the end, I could very well look at Book of Boba Fett, my least favorite Star Wars thing ever, and be like, in the context of this entire Mandoverse thing, it worked. It was fine. But as for the Ahsoka show on its own, I'm just like, I don't think that serves the story, because when everything's said and done, I don't feel like I even know why Balin and Shin were there in the first place. I mean, technically, we know that they were hired by Morgan Elsbeth, but we also
Who?
know.
Oh,
Just kidding.
poor Morgan
I
Elsbeth.
know.
Yeah, we're probably not going to
I
get to talk
know.
about her until the next episode when she dies. But
Poor
So unfortunate.
thing.
I know.
It
They
was
did
the
her
will of the
dirty.
force. It was the
yeah,
will of the force. That's why they ended up there.
well, that's the thing, is I just want to know more. Like, to me, just knowing that they were hired, but then keeping, like, continuing to allude to the fact that they have bigger stakes in this and they have more that they want to do here, it just doesn't please me. But again, once the movie
Right.
comes out, I could look at this and be like, Dave Filoni's a fucking genius, and I just needed to shut up and wait. So
Well, that's the issue too. We're not
Yeah.
ranking the Mandoverse. We're just ranking the
right,
show.
exactly.
Right. Yeah. Where would you rank it?
I'm with Crystal.
B tier. Yeah, yeah. I would say C tier almost. Maybe even like in
Oh
front of
God, not another C.
maybe in front of Master and Apprentice. You're right. For the sake of not having more C tier, we'll just go with B tier.
If it's higher than Master and Apprentice, then
Yeah,
it's a
then
B
what does it
tier.
really matter anyways? All right, the finale, the Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlord. Obviously, this is where everything wraps up. It wraps up, kind of. To me, the ending just felt very rushed. We're just, like I said, we're just rushing to the finish line. Morgan Elsbeth gets these new powers in the beginning. Super cool. We see her get the sword of, what's it called? The sword of Talzin or something.
Dawson.
Yeah. And that's really cool. And you see her kind of like earn that, and it's fun and cool. And then she like dies.
I
Just dies.
know. Poor thing.
I know. They really underutilized her. I feel like they didn't know what to do with her.
She sat and waited.
Yeah. And she's, I don't know. And she's like a real martial artist too. And you can tell in the way that she moves and she fights. And I
Yeah.
can't believe they gave her the sword the same episode that she died. It
Yep.
was just so like, why didn't they give that to her a few episodes ago?
Yeah.
Like when she got them there.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
I will say, one thing she does great in the episode, not only is her and Ahsoka's fight great, but she like fucks up one of Ahsoka's lightsabers. So Girly is not dual wielding anymore. She gets a hit in.
Yep.
So
Right.
at least we got that. But yeah, I was super bummed because I mean, we talked about it. I love the
Yeah.
Night Sister shit. This episode gave us Night Sister lore, like new Night Sister lore with like the Blade of Talzin is like this thing.
Yep.
It was just cool because it related back to the Clone Wars and poor Morgan
Yeah.
Elsbeth.
She really didn't need to die either. I think they only killed her because someone had to die and they weren't going to kill someone from like the main cast.
Right.
So they just killed her.
I know. They could have killed Shin. I like her.
Right.
I would have been
Or
sad.
Ezra. Or Sabine. Or Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Ahsoka wasn't gonna die in season 1, silly. She's gonna die in the movie.
You know what's so funny is when Ahsoka ended and we saw Sabine and Ahsoka, that because they're stranded on the planet or the
Peridia.
galaxy, Peridia, they're stuck there, and Ahsoka says something like, "It's time to move on," and I was like, "Oh, is this? Are we wrapping up Ahsoka's character here?" And I remembered
Right.
this is the Mandoverse. This is Dave Filoni's character. And I don't know, for me, I know Dave Filoni is not going to kill her probably ever. So I was like, in my mind, I was like, is this the compromise? Because I'm willing to just be like, yeah, Ahsoka is in another planet and she's never coming back. But that's not
Oh
gonna happen.
God, I hope not. Jesus Christ.
That's not going to
Yeah.
happen. You know damn well that's not going to happen. And you know what's going to
She's
suck?
gonna have her Gandalf moment in the
Yeah.
movie.
And what's going to suck is they're either going to resolve the fact that she's stranded within 5 minutes of whatever next project, or they're going to drag it out for another full season. There's not going to be anything in between. They're going to, because like I said, I feel like the entire point of this first season is just getting live action Mandalorian fans and animated Rebels fans onto the same page. And now we can do all the things that Dave Filoni wanted to do with the original series of finding these people in a new distant galaxy and exploring the new distant galaxy and seeing Ahsoka and Sabine train and all that. We can get to a point where we can basically tell the story that Dave Filoni wanted to tell beforehand, but a more compromised version that everyone's on the same page now. And so I don't like this finale.
Oh, I do.
I would rank it D tier.
Okay, as much as I hate Ezra's blue lightsaber, that was a great moment.
Yeah.
He gets his new lightsaber to honor his master, who we all know I hate. No, I'm just kidding. We know I don't hate him. Go watch my green lightsaber video if you want to hear how I feel about the blue saber. I'm not going to say nothing else. I think that's a really great moment. We get some more growth with Ahsoka and Sabine. They're finally like trusting each other officially. I think that, and we've talked about this before, but the scene of them galloping on the howlers to the fortress, I think that scene looks amazing. I know you said the
that's a
show
good
looks like
scene.
shit, Austin, but I think that scene, like the special effects and everything, looks great.
It's a good scene. Well, that's the thing, is the best shots of Ahsoka are the fully CGI shots. Like,
They're not. Oh, you mean when? I thought you meant when she is CGI. I was like, damn, okay.
no. Like when like the Purgle shots, the shots of the Purgle look like they're from a $400 million movie, and
Mm.
then you see like just the shots of them on the ground. It's not as great. That's one of those where, and yes, the in multiple shots of that scene, Ahsoka, Ezra, and Sabine are CGI models because
Yeah.
they can't do that in real life. And I think it looks great.
I thought there were some really good moments in this episode. But I have to agree with Austin about how it really just felt like a setup to something else. Like it didn't really feel like a contained ending. And the ending was so bittersweet. Like I did like that Sabine kind of like sacrificed her being with Ezra so Ezra could go home. That was like really not, maybe sad's not the right word, but like devastating. It was like a devastating moment, I would say. But the choreography was so like bad to me. I
Right.
really liked seeing zombies. I thought the zombies were cool. But it just was so just like, are we done? Like, let's get, I don't know, maybe there wasn't enough buildup leading up to them, or maybe the fighting wasn't good, or I don't know. It felt like off to me.
I surprisingly didn't mind it because you're talking when it was Ezra, Sabine, and Ahsoka against the stormtroopers, and then zombie or night troopers, right?
Yeah, night troopers.
I know,
Yeah,
I know
like
people complained about that, but it didn't bother me.
just like, huh, huh, huh,
I thought
huh,
they're
huh,
like they're so
huh.
easy. It's nothing. These are like skilled warriors going up against the
Right.
stormtroopers who everybody says can't shoot. They're not first order troopers. They're leftovers from the Empire. And you know, they haven't been fighting nobody where they've been fighting the bandits. They've been in a fucking castle. So
Right.
Right.
I just thought it was like, here are these warriors going up against like these fucking little foot soldiers. Of course it's nothing to them.
To
But
me,
I thought Ezra's choreography was very like Ezra. He's doing all this flip, or not flipping, but like leaning and spinning and
yeah. To me, that fight scene, it felt just like they were just trying to fill the runtime, because these are highly trained warriors, and so I'm sure that they would understand that fighting these zombies, they're fighting these troopers that they just all took out and killed. They all just stood back up and came back to life. So what's the point of fighting them? They're gonna come back to life. Run. But instead, they're sitting there fighting with them
Yeah.
because we need to have action scenes
Right.
within the show.
Yeah. And it was cool because like they all had like they're all doing their own thing, but it just felt like, oh, look it, here they are, instead of
Yeah.
like a more like put together
Hmm.
scene, I guess. The Morgan Elsbeth versus Ahsoka was pretty cool. It was cool seeing Sabine show up because I didn't think that she was going to. I was
Hmm.
kind of shocked about that. And yeah, the ending was very like,
oh,
it felt like it was trying to do a lot, and I just don't know if I like liked it. I did like
Yeah.
that it was kind of like a sad ending, but
it
I
was
don't know if I
somber.
liked it. Yeah, it was somber.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just like, again, another Marvel reference that y'all ain't gonna know nothing about. But in Infinity War, there's two Avengers movies, Infinity War and Endgame, where
Oh, of course, yeah, I
in
know.
Infinity War, at the end of the movie, they all turn to dust, right? Or half the characters turn to dust. You got like Spider-Man, Bucky Barnes, characters you care about. that literally die at the end of this movie. And
Wow.
then it leaves you on that cliffhanger, and then in the next movie everything gets resolved. But there was a year in between movies, and at the end of Infinity War, it didn't feel like you didn't get enough. Like the movie ending on that note, even though it was still technically set up for another movie, it didn't it still felt impactful because you actually knew the context of what was going on. You understood that these characters died because of the entire movie, where Thanos is his entire mission is to make that happen. And so it's basically like if that movie came out and we never knew why they died until the next movie. And that's what this is here, where it's like it's a somber ending, but we don't really know why. Like it,
Well,
we don't know
I
anything.
think we know why.
Why?
Well, Grand Admiral Thrawn is the big thing, and he gets to the new galaxy, and we know he gets there. We have no
Okay.
idea what he's going to unleash when he gets there. And then
Right.
poor Ahsoka and Sabine are stuck. They went to save Ezra. Well, they saved Ezra, but they can't be there to celebrate him returning with him.
Okay, so what's the threat? Because like you said, we don't know
Thrawn.
what. Okay, and why? What's he going back to the what? Why does he want to go back to the main galaxy? What's his whole thing?
This
What's
is
his
the
threat?
argument. This is the like Mandoverse versus show argument.
Mm-hmm.
Because like Mando season 3, Captain Pelion was talking about Thrawn's return,
Well,
but in the context of the show, well, we get we get the controversial line of "Long live the Empire." So
right. Well, that's why I bring up Infinity War and Endgame, because it's like Thrawn with Thanos, right? When he wins in the end, we understand why he won and what his entire plan was and what he set out to do. With Thrawn, we don't know why he won, because for all the people that read the books, I almost said all of us. I sat through a PowerPoint. For those people who are caught up in that, what their understanding of why Thrawn wants to get back to the main galaxy is because of the Chiss ascendancy and finding an ally for the Chiss ascendancy
to fight the Grisk and whatnot. Yeah,
that's not a threat to the main galaxy. That's not a threat. And I can't really feel sad about Ahsoka and Sabine, because it's like they're just gonna find a way to go get them. You know what I mean? If Morgan Elsbeth and this low-funded, little project where they're having to hire duct tape together, inquisitors that are filled with green smoke, they're able to build an entire contraption that sends them to a new galaxy. Or Ezra's like friends with the Purgles. You know what I mean? Like I can't be sad about it. And then the thing that is somber is the fact that Thrawn returns, but it's like, what's the purpose of Thrawn returning?
For a movie.
But can we also point out that the big thing that's set up in there is that there's no way for Ahsoka and Sabine to get back. Yes, we know they'll probably find a way back, but that's like the big thing that's set up in the episode. Is like if you're not on the Eye of Sion, you're stuck. Like this was the ticket off the planet. And the Purgles go to Peridia to die. They don't go there as a pit stop and then go back.
Right. But I mean, all it took was Ahsoka to speak to these Purgles, and we've never had an established connection with Ahsoka and animals before.
Don't forget Ahsoka's psychometry that's never happened before.
I know.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
But now we know
her special force abilities. She can probably force heal now. Like
she learned it when her and the daughter touched minds. She learned how to do everything in the force. She just didn't know. She just didn't know until now. She had to die first and then not die. Crystal, where do you think it should go? Because we know what Austin said. Have you said what you think?
I don't think so. I think I would put it on D tier, just because I felt like it wasn't a very good ending for the show. Like I feel like it left us like it wasn't like a good ending, basically.
Because it's not.
That's why. Yeah.
Right.
So that's why.
Oh, I don't want to compromise to C tier again.
Oh wait, where were you gonna put it?
I liked the finale a lot.
Okay, you can't rate every episode that you cry in S tier.
Hey, I only cried at the end. But I liked the action scenes a lot. I liked Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra working together. We haven't touched on it. Sabine is in the Force. I could take it or leave it. I was like,
Oh
give me
yeah.
the saber pull or give me the push. I don't need both because, as Hu Yang said, she ain't got no power. She wouldn't have been inducted into the Jedi. They would have turned her away. I'm like, now you can
Right.
push Ezra, but I'm not gonna let that ruin the episode for me. Whatever.
Right. Well, I have a question for you, Scotty. If there
Please.
had to be one episode that was like the worst one, which one would it be?
I'm gonna refer back to my ranking. Toil and Trouble.
Oh, interesting. I thought you were gonna say this episode.
No, I like this episode a lot. I'd put this episode in like A or B. I had a lot of fun with it, and I loved that. See, so y'all argued about Shadow Warrior and Anakin's usage in that. What did you think of Anakin's usage in this episode? Because we liked his tease. We liked him at the end of episode 4. Y'all didn't like him in 5. I think he was utilized again good in this episode, but I want to hear what y'all think from both of you.
I thought he was good. Like I thought he was fine, but I think that's something that, because I have the whole context of what Anakin and Ahsoka have gone through, to see him at the end there, kind of, being proud of her and kind of like that. It's a sign that she's in the right place. The fact that Anakin and Morai are there, it's a sign that she's in the right place. And you know what? Fuck it. I think it was great. I think it was a great use of Anakin because it's using it's using the knowledge of the audience that we've had in the past, that even in this show, Anakin and Ahsoka, it's established that they're master and apprentice. It's using that relationship, and also the fact that Anakin's a ghost, so he's kind of he's kind of a being that like knows more than the average human. So like that shows visually that Ahsoka's in the right place. It's not something that everybody's going to pick up on. It's not something that they're shoving right in your face that this is where Ahsoka needs to be. But it's one of those things where if you're looking at the details, so I actually think that was great.
Crystal?
I thought it was just okay. I hear what you're saying, Austin, and you're kind of swaying me there, but I don't know. I thought it was okay. Like, okay, there's Anakin again.
Right.
That's how I felt about it.
I think it would have hit if y'all weren't so tainted by Shadow Warrior.
Maybe, you know what? You might be right.
If that was like the only Anakin.
Yeah. Well, this last sequence had like so much Return of the Jedi themes to it as well. So that was kind of cool. We didn't even talk about like Baylan going to like the statues, the Mortis gods, and Shin doing her little
yeah.
We didn't even talk about those. I think that's the other thing is there's so much jam packed into these episodes, and it kind of just like went nowhere.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's almost like we miss filler.
Yeah.
I love filler. I'm an anime girly.
I guess fun filler that's added for like just to where it's not the main mission, but we get to spend more time with the characters. Because I think y'all talked about the action scene in this almost felt like they're just filling the time. We weren't really spending time with the characters, getting to like almost hang out with them more and learn more about them. I mean, that's been I think all of our biggest complaints and lots of people about Baylan and Shin is just we wanted more time with them. I don't even know where I'm going with this point, but I liked the Mortis Gods thing, but it is kind of sucks. Taking Ray Stevenson's passing out of the context, just the fact that we don't even know what he wants. He's going maybe something to do with the Mortis Gods, but we don't know what. We don't know if the Mortis Gods are there. Yeah. I mean, the father should be dead at this point. So
and it kind of goes against what we understand of the Mortis Gods anyways, where it's like, how the fuck does Baylan Skoll know about the Mortis Gods? Because even Anakin and Ahsoka, who have literally met the Mortis Gods, don't know about the Mortis Gods. So
he bought the stones at Luthen Rail's shop on Coruscant.
Oh, there you go.
Now we're
Well,
tying Andor to the
the little
Mandoverse.
knockoffs.
Right.
God.
Wait, where did you rank this one, Austin?
D tier.
Because Scotty said A or B, and I said D. Oh, wow.
Yeah, D tier.
God, just put it in fucking D because I don't want another one in C. I'm not gonna fight with
Really?
y'all. It's
D tier.
I'd put Toil and Trouble in D before I put this one in D.
Yeah.
But
we gotta make we all made a little like compromise where we were giving more because like you see
this is what I get for Shadow
Crystal.
Warrior. Go ahead, say it.
Well, I'm saying Crystal put this one in S tier. What does it even say? Fallen Jedi.
Right.
Crystal did not agree with S tier, even though we agreed with that. So she chose to just say fuck her opinion, put it in S tier. So you could say fuck your opinion and we'll put it in D tier. And the fuck you to me is that we have Shadow Warrior anywhere above E. So
Right. I really thought that I was going to fight for all these to be a lot lower, but I think in my head they're all a lot lower.
Right.
Well, it's our combined ranking.
Right, right.
I also think there's a large part of it is like, I know for the theatrics, we like to act like we fucking hate each other during these rankings.
No, I love all of you, but I'm still gonna fight. I'm still gonna fight for my man.
Well,
Shadow
we're
Warrior.
pretending.
Well, like, to be honest, it's nice to hear people who enjoy what you didn't enjoy, why they enjoyed it, because at that point it's not really easy for me to be like, well, fuck you, you know, like you enjoyed it, and what really is, like, I could tell you why I don't think that, why I don't enjoy it or why I don't think people should enjoy it, but you know, at the end of the day, it's nice to hear, and it opens my eyes a bit more, where I feel like before this episode I was looking at Ahsoka a little more negatively. So I feel like I'm looking at it at maybe like 1% of a brighter light here. So
I mean, this doesn't match my ranking at all. There's episodes that I ranked higher on here just by talking it out with y'all and like focusing on what is good and what I don't like is, or like what I think is objectively good, what we feel is not as objectively good, and realizing that some of those good moments when they hit,
right.
and some of those moments that are supposed to hit, like y'all talked about in Shadow Warrior, like, yeah, I didn't know what Ahsoka learned at the end of the day. I cried my fucking eyes out the whole time, but that wasn't because I was like, oh my god, Anakin and Ahsoka are having this crazy breakthrough. I was like, it's the Clone Wars and I love it. So
yeah,
and there's also good like relationship building, but at the end I was still like, I don't know what she learned.
right.
But good for her.
Exactly.
Good for her.
Yep. Happy for her.
Right. Yeah, I ranked some of these higher than I expected. Like these B tiers, I'm pretty happy with where those are, you know? Like, I didn't think that, you know, I feel like a changed woman.
Good.
Perfect.
You and I both.
Yes. Well, then that means that this was a very useful episode of This is the Wayseekers. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and thank you to our guest Crystal Kyber for joining with us, and hopefully you don't hate us after this whole thing.
We're still besties. You're still my bestie.
Yes. We're all creators. You know, we got shit to promote, and it's in the description. So make sure to check all that out, and make sure to leave reviews and likes and all the things that feed our egos. Thank you so much. See you next time with another episode of This is the Wayseekers. Happy holidays. May the force be with you.
Always.
Bye.